Well, hello everyone. Here to show you to say that it's like so far as for Kansas, and then it's like Kansas, Kansas. It is like talk about right here of talk about is like the question mark right here of the meaning of like what you call is like the difference. What is the difference between Kansas City, between it's like for Kansas City, it's like between Kansas State and then Kansas, Missouri. It is, and a lot of times with anybody that may do like what you call like the study of talking about between like it's like if it's between the study of like say between the county it is, and basically that some people that may say that it's within about 20 miles, that they're about 20 miles in between. It is. It's like between like what you call like St. Louis. It is. It's like that between Kansas City and St. Louis, that would be about maybe 120 miles, something like that. It's like for between downtown St. Louis is about 110, maybe closer to about 200 miles, something like that. But if we would do the calculations, it is talking about it's like the distance it is, but between those two. But you have right here is I went ahead and drew right here is exact like a diagram right here. I'm talking about it's like between like what you call it's like between Liberty between Liberty say Kansas it is, and of course other different say parts of Kansas right here is like for Kansas, Missouri it is. You have right here for Kansas, Missouri, and right here will be say the state Kansas. And I was just thinking about that in a lot of ways that anybody that may wonder that what is the difference really between what you call between Kansas state and then Kansas, Missouri, because it just seems like that they're only about maybe about 20 maybe about a half an hour away from each other. If you go like what you call if you go about which if this will be like what you call south or east or something like that, southeast or something like that. If you were in Kansas State and then be traveling, you say southeast or northeast, and then you would be entering it's like the Missouri border right here. And a lot of times with anybody that that's just really about how the states connect to each other. And a lot of times anybody who if they would be going like what you call up up west or something like that, up north it is, you say north, south, east, or is like west it is, of knowing about if you would be going up to maybe like the Chicago area or maybe Detroit, you say different parts of Michigan it is. But a lot of ways that between it is like the difference between Kansas State and Kansas, Missouri, and anybody that I guess for right now, the answer I guess more likely to be is like so far with 20 miles. If I can remember right, I'm like basically that 20 miles. They're about 20. I don't know. I'm like, they have either 20, say the number 20. It is so far between 20. If it's either 20 minutes away from Kansas State, or if it's 20 miles away from Kansas State. And anybody that may say, well, if anything, it's 20. Kansas State is about maybe 20 minutes away from you say the center part say of Kansas, Missouri. It is, but on the other hand, that knowing about it with these these two different, it's like you got right here, I guess is a city, and then you got the state right here, the city and then the state. And it kind of reminds me of one of those cartoons, but it's like they're talking about between the city and the state, that basically that anybody may think about. Whenever you enter into Kansas City, though, that you have you see right here, as I'm drawing right here, is that this part, say of Missouri, it's all of part of Kansas City, and then this part right here, I can maybe kind of like draw like what you call like if it would actually be showing like on a local radar. It is like maybe if it was a snowstorm coming in on say on a local radar, but you have right here drawing right here the details, and then after about after about 15 minutes of driving through parts, say of downtown, parts of Kansas City it is, and then you enter the state of Kansas it is. And a lot of times that they said that there would be like say signs or something that will be posted and knowing about whenever you go into enter Kansas part. But in a lot of ways, with anybody that may think that it goes by maybe by the saying of the story of talking about that when it time to where that at the time that if it goes by saying it's like the story about that there was just a Kansas State alone until that there was a city named after so and so, or maybe after some football team or something like that, and knowing about that then there was a city that this must have, some of this stuff must have happened like the early 1900s or something like that, but that I don't know. I know me that in a lot of ways I guess keep this in mind with almost everybody exactly about what is the difference between Kansas State and then Kansas it is, and that if there's going to be like what you call in Arkansas, Missouri it is, and in a lot of ways I'm like first that Arkansas, I guess the study of Arkansas would be at about right down here, if that would be like what you call south or something like that, but so far with AR and then K and a lot of times with anybody like talking about it's like for Kansas, I used to always think that it was called the state of Arkansas. It is, but it's Arkansas. But anybody that may think about like, well, the S, the S must be silent, and if it's silent, then why does it go there? I'm like, anybody maybe think about, I'm like, yeah, this like so far with Kansas though, with Kansas, I'm like, why don't you just leave off the S, if there ain't no S, at the end of it or something like that, no S. But other than that, like talk about like kiss or something like that. But anyway, so far as kisses or anything like that, for Kansas or if it's Arkansas. But anyway, say Arkansas, it's like you talk about, I guess that would be like, say, first south, say part of, say, the state of Missouri it is. And then right up here, like you have right here, for Illinois, like that, so far with, say, for the Illinois, it is. It's like you have, I say, for Illinois, and then right up here would be like, see here, I think, Iowa, and of course, say Nebraska further up, but on the other hand, that you have right here is like so far as a state right here, Missouri it is, and I'm like trying write it out right here so far as the state of Missouri, and there's I was thinking about that. I wonder if there's like you say a Los Angeles, Kansas. I'm like here in the state of Kansas. I wonder if there's a county called Los Angeles. Say for Los Angeles, Kansas, or something like that. For Los Angeles or San Diego, Kansas, or something like that. But on the other hand, a lot of times, the typical towns and cities and counties and stuff, a lot of times you begin to wonder if they were named after the states. Such as you say, for St. Louis, for St. Louis, Missouri, and let's just say if there's a street, in Kansas State that's called like what you call, the St. Louis Boulevard or something like that, St. Louis Boulevard or anything like that. But the names of these streets and highways and stuff like that, at the time you begin to what they're named after. But on the other hand, too, that knowing about the difference between them, and as far as I know, that anybody that may say that if anything, it's 20 miles. 20 miles, between 20 miles and 20 minutes. And anybody that if they live only about maybe 5 miles away from between the city and states it is, of knowing about if it's either a job or something like that, work or playing for a football team or something like that, of knowing about it's like about 20 minutes or 20 miles, and some people that may think that maybe 10 miles, something like that, but anyway, it's basically a city to where I guess it it connects to. That's not too far from Kansas State, and if we were to do our studies of talking about between Kansas State, though, that a lot of times that I'm like, that if there was somebody who lived in Kansas State and then that they had to go to Kansas, Missouri for any reason, such as for job or something like that, and then I'm like that. Then there are some states where I heard that like on the license plates that I heard that you don't even have to, pay, say, property tax or something like that on the, say, on the license plates, but then like in the state of Missouri that you do, but something like that. But anyway, but knowing about the difference between them, and at the time, anybody that may wonder, I'm like that, yeah, like between, it's like, between Chesterfield and Springfield, and on your hand too is like, or Herman, or other places like that, other cities and counties and towns, you see, around the state of Missouri it is, and you enter Missouri and then you go into Kansas it is, and a lot of times it's like, so far with Kansas, and right here it's like for Kansas City, and like with anybody that may be like, well, probably Kansas, that if the whole part about you can't tell the difference between Kansas State and Kansas City, it is talking about, I'm like that, yeah, that out there in Kansas State that they got maybe some areas of farmland. There could be some areas of farmland, or maybe some more cities or something like that, more towns, and like racetracks or anything like that, out that way it is as well. But on the other hand, that I guess with anybody that may wonder, and I guess we can maybe tell somebody that well, it's Kansas City. I guess that at one time, I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, if anybody were to ever wonder about, that you get these different answers of knowing about that, you have like what you call like a small city, a city right here. It's maybe about a portion of the size of Kansas right here. You have a city, and then you got right here is a state, the city and then the state. And then talk about anybody that may wonder, they were to be driving on the highway, it is, and then talking about between the city and the state, 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 city, 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 state. It's like, so far it's like, but anyway, but I'm like, yeah, and I think, see here, some people that may feel like, they wouldn't do that whenever they're traveling, biking, or, traveling through, parts of Kansas, and then they go into Kansas City and talk about between, city, state, 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 city, state, city, and be like, okay, that's enough. I'm like, well, and then, right here would be like what you call like driving, say, to, Kansas, and then, if you would be like what you call, if that would be like what you call, southeast, or something like that, northeast, or something like that, of, you drive right here, and then you'll be coming into, say, parts of, say, Warrensburg or something like that, and then, you say, about, that would be about maybe 45 minutes, and then see what town is off from there. That I think you have Sedalia at about right in here, and of course you got Columbia, and then you also have Jefferson City at about right here, and then you keep driving, and then you can run into maybe Kingdom City at about right in here, and then on, say, for a couple drive miles, and right into St. Louis, and that like I can go ahead and draw right here, like you have right here is like the example right here of the Eads Bridge it is, but I'm like talking about that the Eads Bridge though. I'm like that you got here the bridge, but I'm like, I know what the Eads Bridge looks like. I'm like, yeah, try to draw the Eads Bridge at about right in here. It is like you say the Eads Bridge, but Eads Bridge. But I'm like, yeah, that other bridges, of course, that may be down there off of, say, downtown St. Louis, and anybody may think about go ahead and maybe draw the arch, draw the arch right there. But anyway, but I don't know, with anybody that may think about that you have right here is Illinois, and which I didn't realize this. That I don't know if anybody else did, but if you were to cross the Eads Bridge, and I know my parents and I like that, I went across the Eads Bridge one time. That with it's like went across the Eads Bridge, and then it was like going in there, and then I didn't realize later on that hey, I'm like that you were in the state of Illinois or something like that. Whenever you crossed the Mississippi River, I'm pretty sure it's the Mississippi River. But anyway, I'm pretty sure it was the Mississippi River. You cross the Mississippi River, and then they go into like what you call is like the restaurant, and I don't, I cannot recall the name of that restaurant, but at the time, though, that you have right here, be crossing the river into like the state of Illinois. It is. It's like for Illinois, but then on your hand too that there really there ain't no Illinois city right here that I know of. I'm like that, yeah. So far with Illinois city, like if there's a city named by Illinois City, and a lot of times it's like people say like for St. Louis City, between say between St. Louis and then you have maybe like St. Charles, about right here it is for St. Charles, and then along with O'Fallon, if you have to say O'Fallon, but anyway. For O'Fallon, and then other kinds, of course, that cities and counties are out that way. But on your hand too, like St. Peter's and then Warrensburg, or so. I guess like see if I can try to write it in here. I'm like, yeah, talk about it's like trying to write in there, the perfect spot for it's like, so for Jefferson City would be at about right here. It's like from Columbia it is. But ideas like so far as go on and on about piecing together a map right here of these different counties and cities like that. But so far as talk about the difference between Kansas State and then Kansas City, knowing about that they're about a few minutes away from each other. And on the hand too, I guess it's all about the connector city of knowing about that there's like there's just a Kansas State or something like that, and then they built a city. Then they start building and increasing, it's like you say, for the population so far as colleges or something like that, for Kansas City. But so if I be difference between what you call Kansas State and of course Kansas Missouri it is, and anybody that may think about that some people that may say it's a drive a few minutes. Drive a few minutes away from the state, and I don't know anybody who lives in the Kansas area, if it's between Kansas State and Kansas Missouri, and just wondering about between going from job to job, and you may have to pay different property taxes or something like that on there, and knowing about that, yeah, that I'm wondering about well, why is it that I'm like that they all just can't build a city out there in Kansas State other than building a city in Missouri it is. But on the other hand too, to talk about it's like between 20 minutes away from each other it is. I talk about it's like talk about say between Kansas State and Kansas Missouri, knowing about it's like so far as like the different parts, of course, of knowing about from how the state connect to each other. It's like this whole thing about the whole country, about the United States of America. It is about how we have these cities that connect from state to state and county to county. I know, but if they don't connect, then more likely that there ain't no way that more likely that they would maybe be part of the country anyway. But on the other hand, too, to knowing about is like between these roads and these sidewalks, whichever it is, of knowing about how they connect it is, and knowing about the between 20 miles and 20 minutes. So far as the study about for Kansas, talking right here. So far as the state and as the Missouri is like what is the difference between Kansas State and Kansas Missouri?